నమస్కారం. ప్రపంచానికి యోగాని చాటి చెప్పింది మన భారతదేశం. 112 అడుగుల ఎత్తున ఆదియోగి విగ్రహాన్ని ప్రతిష్ఠించి మరొక్కసారి ప్రపంచం దృష్టిని మన వైపు ఆకర్షించేలా చేశారు ఈషా ఫౌండేషన్ వ్యవస్థాపకులు సద్గురు. మరి ఈ సందర్భాన్ని పురస్కరించుకుని సద్గురుతో కాసేపు మాట్లాడదాం. నమస్కారం సద్గురు. ఆదియోగి 112 అడుగుల ఎత్తున ఆదియోగి విగ్రహం ద్వారా మరొక్కసారి ప్రపంచం అంతా మన వైపు చూసేలా చేశారు. దీని వెనుక ఉన్న ఆంతర్యం ఏమిటి అంటారు?
See, in the very nature of human evolution, we've reached a point where today more human beings can think for themselves than ever before. Till now, largely, most human beings could not think for themselves. Either they allowed a scripture to think for them, or a priest, or a pandit, or a guru, or some other elder, somebody to think for them. Today, more people are thinking for themselves than ever before. We can always question, are they thinking right, thinking wrong, that's not the point. The moment one begins to think, even if they're this way, that way in their thought, essentially, thinking means you are trying to be logically correct. So we're reaching a point in this generation where unless something is logically correct, people will not be able to accept it. Even if this generation, even if you are willing to little bend your logic because elder said something or scripture said something, tradition says something, you're willing to bend your logic. The next generation, your children, they will not. It has to be logically correct, otherwise they will not take it. Not only logically correct, it must be scientifically verifiable. So once this kind of situation comes in human societies, it's time for Adiyogi. Because he did not teach you a belief system, a philosophy, an ideology, something that you have to believe or adhere to. He just taught you the science of human mechanism and its relationship with the larger cosmic mechanism. And he gave 112 methods or technologies for your immediate well-being and your ultimate well-being. So, for the first time in the history of humanity, a time has come when Adiyogi becomes relevant to large segments of society. Otherwise, he was only relevant to small segments of society because only small segments of society could think for themselves. Now, society is beginning to think, human generation is beginning to think, and it's going to be much more in the coming years. Now is the time. Adiyogi's antiquity goes back to over 15,000 years. He is of the future because a scientific way of addressing human well-being.
ఇందాక మీరు వెల్ బీయింగ్ అని అన్నారు కదా, సో ఈ వెల్ బీయింగ్ అనేది ఏంటి?
చెప్పండి, మీరు ఎప్పుడు వెల్ బీయింగ్ వెల్ అని తెలుసుకుంటారు మీరు?
హ్యాపీగా ఉన్నప్పుడు.
అంతే కదా?
అంటే ఒక్కొక్కళ్ళకి ఒక్కొక్క రకమైన హ్యాపీనెస్ అనేది ఉంటుంది కదా?
No, there are no many kinds of happiness.
Okay.
Different people may become happy because of different stimulus. Somebody is happy because they wear good clothes.
Yeah.
Somebody is happy because they have good relationships. Somebody else is happy because they ate good food.
So that is the types of happiness.
These are not types of happiness. These are different stimuli for happiness.
Okay.
But happiness is same.
Yeah.
A pleasantness of experience. Yeah. So if I teach you a way, without this food, without this clothing, without any of these outside things, if you simply sit here, you are happy because of your very existence. Would you be interested?
Yeah, why not?
This does not mean you cannot enjoy your food or your clothing or your life, but Tell me, when can you enjoy your food, your clothing, your relationships, your work? When is it that you can enjoy? When you're joyful, you enjoy it most, isn't it?
Yes.
So this is what we are looking at. When we talk about well-being, we are not talking about well-being as a consequence of certain activity, but as the basis of our existence.
మన భారతదేశ సంప్రదాయంలో ఎన్నో రకాల ఆ, భగవంతుళ్ళను మనం చూస్తూ ఉంటాం. అంటే అగ్నిదేవుడు అంటూ ఉంటాం, వాయుదేవుడు అంటూ ఉంటాం కదా. అయితే ముఖ్యంగా ఆదియోగిని చూసినప్పుడల్లా శివుడు మాత్రమే గుర్తొస్తూ ఉంటాడు. ఎందుకు అలా అంటారు? ఎందుకు శివుడికి ఆదియోగికి పోలిక ఉంది అంటారు?
This is something people should look at it carefully. India is a godless land. There has never been an idea of the God somewhere. We have known the technologies of God-making. Yes. We only call them devas. We call them murti. Murti means a form. Murti did not mean a god. We created a form which is capable of functioning in a way that would enhance our life. Or in other words, it is a certain tool to enhance our life. When I say a tool, right now, why have you come with a camera? I will speak, you can hear, you can see with your eyes and you could have gone.
Yes, but to show.
That's why it's a tool, isn't it? You could have gone there and spoken about it. I saw all this, Sadhguru spoke all this, but then, by the time you went to Hyderabad and spoke about what I spoke, it would not be my talk. So many things would happen. So now you came with a camera. Now this is a tool. What you cannot do, camera is doing, isn't it?
Yes.
What I cannot do, microphone is doing, isn't it so?
Yes.
So similarly, we came up with many tools. All these tools are only extensions of what we can already do, but in a extended way. Because we can see, there is a microscope, telescope, because we can hear, there is a telephone, there's a microphone. Like this, we invented many things. Similarly, we came up with subjective tools, which we called as murtis.
Okay.
These are subjective tools. We created a certain form, energized it in a certain way, and we gave a certain access code to it, which you're calling as mantra or a certain process. If you access it, then suddenly you are able to do things that other people are not able to do. See, if I ask you to as much as unscrew a screw in this furniture with your hands, all your nails will go, screw will not come. But if I give you a little screwdriver, you will do it. That's the power of a tool.
Yes.
As human beings, we are who we are on this planet only because of our ability to use tools. So in this country, in this culture, we came up with subjective tools. If I say this, today unfortunately, in most people's minds in this country, it's become like this. If something has to be science, it has to come from the West. If it happens in India, it can't be science. So let's take a Western example. You have heard of Ramanujam.
Yes.
Ramanujam poured out mathematics. 100 years ago or over 100 years ago, what he wrote, even now they're figuring it out.
Exactly.
What he wrote in 1910, now they are saying it describes black holes. In 1910, there was no concept of black hole in the scientific community. At that time, he gave a mathematical description of black hole. When people asked him, how do you do this, where does it come from? He said, my Devi, his words were this, she bleeds mathematics.
Yeah.
So for him, his Devi was the window. Similarly, we've created many tools. Like we've created Bhairavi Devi, she is a window to open certain things. She will give you access to dimensions in a way that you yourself can never do by yourself. Like this, we created many murtis. But Adiyogi is not in that sense. This is an inspiration for you to make use of an already existing technology for well-being.
Okay.
That is, you use this form as an inspiration, and there's a Yogeshwar Linga which is a tool. That you use this so that well-being is not dependent on what happens in your life. Because what situations that we may face in our lives are not always determined by us, but what happens within ourselves must be determined by us. What the world throws at us is not our choice. What we make out of it is 100% our choice.
ఇప్పుడు అంటే ఆదియోగి ప్రతిష్టాపన జరిగింది ఇక్కడ, టూల్ కాదు ఇది, ఇన్స్పిరేషనల్ అంటున్నారు కదా, ఎందుకు మరి 112 అడుగుల ఎత్తు ఉన్న విగ్రహమే ఎందుకు?
That is because he gave 112 ways, 112 methods through which you can achieve immediate and ultimate well-being. So to honor him, 112 feet.
ఓకే,
So it's the largest face on the planet today.
ఎగ్జాక్ట్లీ, అవును. ఆల్రెడీ ఈశా ఆశ్రమంలో ధ్యానలింగం ఉంది కదా, మరి ధ్యానలింగానికి ఇక్కడ ఇప్పుడు మీరు ప్రతిష్ఠించిన యోగేశ్వర లింగానికి మధ్య వ్యత్యాసం ఏంటి అంటారు?
Dhyanalinga is a very subtle process, and these days it's getting super crowded. People are queuing up to sit and meditate. Yogeshwara Linga is of a much simpler process. This is so much easier for people to experience. Dhyanalinga is very subtle, totally mukti-oriented. This is for general well-being and all aspects of life. That also has this dimension, but it is very subtle. There is no comparison between this and that. That takes 1,000 times more effort to create than this.
ఓకే,
In terms of life. But this is more accessible out in the front for people to experience.
మంత్ర ప్రతిష్ఠ, ప్రాణ ప్రతిష్ఠ అంటారు కదా, వాటి మధ్య ఉన్న భేదం ఏంటి?
Today modern science is telling you the whole creation is just a reverberation of energy. Is it true that if you utter a sound, there is a vibration? Sound is a vibration, isn't it? So through complex arrangement of sounds, which we call as mantras, people are trying to create a certain reverberation and try to hold it so that it's beneficial. That's mantra pratishtha. Somebody like me who is unschooled, who has no any kind of spiritual schooling or any kind of schooling for that matter, I know only this piece of life. There's only one thing I know. I know this piece of life from its origin to its ultimate. So I just use this life in me to make things happen. I don't know any spiritual education. I have not learnt this mantra, that Upanishad, this Upanishad, or any scriptures for that matter. I know only this, so I use this. This is prana. I'm using my prana because I have no education.
అసలు భక్తి అంటే ఒక్కొక్కరి దృష్టిలో ఒక్కొక్క రకంగా ఉంటుంది కదండి, భక్తి అంటే ఏమిటి అంటారు?
See, bhakti means devotion. Devotion essentially means that it's a tool for your dissolution. That is, if you are in a state of extreme devotion, you have no sense of yourself. That means something has become far more important than yourself. It's natural for every creature, from a worm to insect to bird to animal, for all of them, their life is important. Bhakti means you are playing a side role in your own life. You made something else far more important than you. This may… intellectually you may look at it and think, oh, this is a silly way of living. But this makes your emotional dimension of who you are so extremely sweet that your experience of life is fantastic. You will see anybody who is in a state of bhakti is always spilling poetry because they're in such states of sweetness. Somebody falls in love and they start writing poetry, but poetry dries up after some time.
Yeah.
But if you're in a state of bhakti, it is flowing all the time because you have achieved a certain state of sweetness within yourself. That's one aspect. Another dimension is, tell me, has anybody in this world, in any field, whether it is sport, art, music, science, name it, all right, or spirituality for that matter, has anybody achieved anything significant in their life without being devoted to what they're doing? That's bhakti. Bhakti is not just about God, bhakti is the way you are. If you are in a state of bhakti, you have absolute involvement with everything. In that state, the best of who you are will come out. Otherwise, you are a half a human being. If you have no devotion, you are only half a human being. Only if you're devoted, you will go beyond your limit and do something.
ఒక ఏజ్ వచ్చిన తర్వాతే ధ్యానం చేయడం కానీ యోగా చేయడం కానీ చేయాలి అనుకుంటూ ఉంటారు కదా, అసలు ఏ టైం నుంచి యోగా మొదలు పెట్టాలి అంటారు?
If you want to experience your life well, is it important that you have a good body, a good mind, a good sense of emotion and energy? Is it important? Is it true, the more you know about it, the better you can use it? Why is that not true with this? The more you know about this, the better you can use it, isn't it? This is called a self-realization. That means you've read the user's manual thoroughly. You know everything about this. Now you can use this in a way that other people think is superhuman. Nothing superhuman about it. It is just human. They have not realized being human is super. That's a problem.
Okay.
So this should happen in the beginning of your life or end of your life, I'm asking.
Beginning only.
Yes, at the earliest possible time it must happen, isn't it? If you're interested in experiencing life to its fullest, it must happen at the earliest part of your life.
మామూలుగా అంటే ఇప్పుడు జనరేషన్ పిల్లలంతా ఎట్లా ఉన్నారంటే ఏదైనా ఒకటి జరిగితేనో అయితే ఎగ్జామ్లో ఫెయిల్ అయితేనో లేకపోతే ఇందాక మనం అనుకున్నట్టుగా ప్రేమలో ఫెయిల్ అవుతేనో అప్పుడు వాళ్ళకి యోగా ఇంకా మైండ్ చాలా జాగ్రత్తగా ఉండాలి, ఇప్పుడు మనం చక్కగా ఉండాలి అన్నది ఒక ఆలోచన వస్తుంది. సో అప్పుడు మొదలు పెడతారు. అలా కాకుండా వాళ్ళకి మొదటి నుంచే కాదు దీని ప్రయోజనం ఇట్లా ఉంటుంది, నువ్వు ఇలా ఉంటేనే బాగుపడతావు జీవితంలో అన్నది ఎలా చెప్పాలి అంటారు?
We have to create a general trend in the society. See, today, largely, though still there are many people left out unfortunately, largely everybody knows how to read and write, let's say. Why is it? Because we created infrastructure of schools and human structure of teachers. Because we have created that reasonably, there are a lot of people who can read and write. Similarly, if we create an enough number of yoga centers and dedicated teachers, then a whole lot of people will know how to do it. Your mother, I'm sure, taught you how to brush your teeth when you were probably 3 years of age,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yes.
If she had not taught you, maybe even now you wouldn't know how to do it. Many people don't know.
Oh God.
Many people don't know. Those who are not taught do not know, isn't it? So because at the age of 3 she taught you this, at the age of 3 or 4, along with your toothbrushing, if she had also taught you, if it was so common that she also taught you how to meditate, it would be effortless, isn't it? So in this culture, at one time we had this, it was widespread. Because we've been an occupied nation for a very long time, we lost it. Because they made sure we lose it, because they knew this is our strength. But in spite of continued occupation for hundreds of years, we've still survived because of that strength. Now if we are to prosper also, we have to bring that strength back into our society.
మీరు అన్నట్టుగా భారతదేశంలోనే పుట్టింది. రామానుజన్ చెప్పాడు బ్లాక్ హోల్ అంటే ఏంటి అని. సైన్స్ అనేది వెస్టర్న్ వాళ్ళు చెప్తేనే అది సైంటిఫిక్గా ఉంటుంది ఏదైనా విషయం అని అన్నారు కదా. భారతదేశమే యోగాను పరిచయం చేసినప్పటికీ కూడా ఎందుకు మన దగ్గరే తక్కువ అయిపోయింది అంటారు?
See, as I said earlier, we've been an occupied nation. We were the richest nation on the planet 250 years ago. In 1947, when they left, we were among the poorest nations on the planet. When the British came into India, they were amazed, they could not believe. There was not a single illiterate person in the country. There were no schools, but there was no single illiterate person. Everybody could read and write. But when they left, there was 91% illiteracy. They were successful in what they wanted to do. Now we have to be successful in what we want to do.
Now you're proving like that. Now you're in that way.
We have to bring it back.
Yeah.
Now because of that extreme poverty, for 10-15 generations of extreme poverty, we've lost many things. It's time to get it back.
ప్రపంచ యోగా డేని పురస్కరించుకుని ఈశా నుంచి ఎటువంటి కార్యక్రమాల్ని చేయబోతున్నారు?
1 million yoga viras will create. Each one of them will commit to teach a minimum of 100 people. This means in 1 year, there will be 100 million new practitioners of yoga. So it's part of the yoga day and everything. And there'll be many other things. We are particularly focusing on the schools, as I said earlier, because children are committing suicide. We are essentially focusing largely on children and school children and college students, because a child or a youth means an exuberant piece of life. If that life wants to take its own life, obviously fundamentals are missing. So we want to put that back into the youth and into the children.
మరి మీరు అనుకున్నట్టుగానే ప్రతిరోజు యోగా డే కావాలి అనుకునే వాళ్ళందరికీ మీరు ఇచ్చే సందేశం ఏమిటి, ఎలా వస్తుంది అంటారు?
ఇక్కడ ఉన్న వాళ్ళంతా యూత్ తనే అండి, ఏదో 2-3 ఉన్నారు అంతే వయసాన వాళ్ళు.
అంటే రాబోయే తరం అలా అనుకోవాలి అంటే ఏం చేయాలి?
వీళ్ళంతా డైలీ యోగా డేనే.
అవును.
So we have created already millions of people who are everyday yoga day, not once a year yoga day. So this number has to increase for the culture to change. People must understand, every human being on the planet must understand that if you want health, if you want peace, if you want joy, it can only come from within you. You can stimulate it from outside, but it can only come from within you. Now the question is this, do you want to be a push-start kind of machine or a self-start machine?
Self-start.
You wake up in the morning and you're joyful, or somebody has to come and say sweet things to you to make you happy. This is something everybody must decide. So I want to put 7.3 billion people on self-start, that their peacefulness, their joyfulness, their healthfulness, their blissfulness is on self-start.
సో ఎలా అనిపిస్తోంది మీకు ఇప్పుడు ఆదియోగిని తీసుకురావడం, ఆదియోగి ద్వారా ఒక ఇన్స్పిరేషన్ని సొసైటీకి అందించడం ద్వారా ఎంతవరకు సక్సెస్ సాధించాలి అని?
మీరే చెప్పండి. ఇప్పుడు నేను ఇలాగున్నాను, మీరు నాతో కూర్చున్నారు ఎందుకు? నేనేం ఫిల్మ్ స్టార్ లేదు కదా. ఎందుకు కూర్చున్నారు? బికాస్ ద ట్రెండ్ ఇస్ చేంజింగ్. Yoga, yogi, Adiyogi becoming important, isn't it?
చూసారు కదండి, మరి ఆదియోగి విగ్రహ ప్రతిష్టాపన సందర్భంగా మనకు సద్గురు గారు మనతో చాలాసేపు మాట్లాడారు. మరి ఇది ఇవాల్టి ప్రత్యేక కార్యక్రమం. మరో చక్కటి కార్యక్రమంలో మళ్ళీ కలుసుకుందాం. నమస్కారం.